What is up, guys? It's Dan the Man, and today I'm back with round 3 of the December Action tournament held here at Chess Zone. We're currently on a hot streak with 2 out of 2 after achieving my best ever classical win against National Master Nicholas Karas in an absolutely stressful but overall rewarding game. Something I cannot believe I've accomplished. And the stakes could not get any lower as we're paired against another national master by the name of Chris Chambers, who I've played a few times on the channel. Lately, he's beaten me a couple times. I think in the last couple recaps, I've lost to him. I'm looking to even the score between us. And he is a national master too, despite being lower rated than a typical national master, but that is nothing to underestimate, and he's still quite a strong opponent. And yeah, let's just go ahead and jump straight into the game here. So Chris had the white pieces. I believe that's the color he had in our last encounter. So he starts the game off with e4. I go with e5, knight f3, knight c6, and here he goes into the Ruy Lopez, which he played against me last time. And I also last time, as I am going to play this time, played the Berlin defense. And here he plays his same unorthodox offbeat sideline with d4. And I remember making a recap and seeing this exact opening sideline he played, but that was a long time ago, and I couldn't exactly recall what the theory was 100%. So I didn't blitz out the next move immediately, and I had to sort of slow down and think about what to do. So it's clear that I have to take the pawn on d4 in some way. I don't think taking on e4 is good. Let's just check that. Taking on e4 isn't good because you let white push, and although it's playable, it's not good in practice. So much more common is to take the pawn on d4. So I decided to do it with the knight, and here he takes it back, I take, and he pushes with e5. And I recognize this is position, and I think in the last recap, I played the move knight to d5, which Chris told me, I remember, he said knight d5 is not as common, and I remembered that. So this time, I played knight e4, despite the engine saying knight d5 is best, but knight e4 is more popular. I think if you look in the openings Explorer, you can see that knight e4 is played a vast majority of the time compared to knight d5. So you can do your own research on that. So here he recovers the pawn with queen takes d4, and I retreat with knight to c5. And here he castles, and here I should play the move c6 to attack the bishop and maybe play d5 at some point. But I play this move knight e6, which is also acceptable, attacking the queen, and I'm preparing to develop my bishop and castle at the same time as well. Nothing too crazy there. So here he plays the move queen to e4. I suppose that's a move. Normally, you wouldn't want to play queen e4 because you can push the d-pawn to attack the queen, but notice the bishop is pinning the pawn to the king. So actually, the queen can't really be attacked in any sort of improving way. Going back to c5 wouldn't really make a whole lot of sense. So that's the queen can't really be kicked away from here. So again, I should be playing the move c6 to attack the bishop and also unpin the diagonal, and then play the move d5 and develop my pieces that way. But I instead go with the more traditional route and play bishop c5. And I played this move in like under 10 seconds because that was my whole intention. Just develop the pieces, castle, and we're going to get a normal middle game. Little did I know that white already has, like in the last recap, white already has a steady advantage out of the opening, just because I'm not well versed in this obscure sideline here. And bishop c5 looks pretty innocent, doesn't look like it blunders a whole lot. But he just develops the knight to c3, and again, c6 is the top move of the computer, but I instead castle here. And as you can see, the engine already favors white's position immensely at plus 2.1. And Chris actually finds the best move, which in my opinion isn't really hard to spot. he plays the move bishop to d3, already threatening checkmate on h7. And my knight isn't on the optimal f6 square. It's on this slightly off-place, off-centered e6 square, which is not usually where the knight goes. And therefore, there's less stability on the h7 pawn. So I'm forced to push a pawn to block the checkmate, which can create some weaknesses. You can already see that by playing g6, I have some dark squared weaknesses around my king side, and white still has their dark squared bishop, which means that it could pose some problems for me down the line. So here Chris plays the move knight d5, ready to sink the knight into f6, which would be pretty deadly. In here, the top move of the computer is f5, which looks kind of weird because I feel like that just weakened the king even more. And I'm like, what if the pawn just takes en passant? I can't take back. But then again, c6, I can kick the knight out. And after the knight moves, I would take on f6. So the engine suggests going into this interesting line, where after these trades, I can now prepare to play d5 and get my pieces out and start controlling the center and kicking white's queen out and trying to fight back for equality in the position. So that was the best move of the computer. But I play the quote-unquote more human move, which is bishop to e7, just defending that square entirely. And I'm very happy if he were to take my bishop, because I would get rid of the powerful knight in the center. But at the same time, I would get rid of my dark squared piece that's defending the weaknesses around my king, so it comes at a trade-off. And here white is basically totally winning positionally. If he just plays the move bishop to h6, rook e8, and then just starts this pawn storm with f4, f5, f6, and I don't really have too many options here. If I try to kick the knight out with c6, the engine says trade, and then you can go f5, f6 is on the way, and if you try to go, let's say, knight c5 to try to trade some pieces off, then the engine says you can go queen f4, and if you take the bishop here, takes back, you can play queen takes e5, but then you get into all sorts of trouble like this. This is just a very unpleasant position for black, and I'm in a lot of trouble here. So this is what Chris should have went, and I would just be totally lost. But he instead takes the bishop, which I was actually hoping he would do. He still retains a solid chunk of his advantage, but it has disappeared a little bit. And here he plays the move b4, which is a logical move, even though it's not recommended. He's trying to prevent knight c5, which would be a fork of the queen and bishop. And I was wanting to go there to try to trade off the bishop pair, which would be pretty annoying towards my weakened king. So I was trying to trade off some of his heavy attacking pieces. But here I go a5, trying to undermine the pawn, defending that square. He goes with c3, defending the pawn, reinforcing it. Here I spot an idea, though. I first take, and then he takes back, and then I play this move rook a4, which hits the pawn on b4 twice, but also it pins the pawn. So after he spends a move defending the pawn on b4, because the pawn's pinned, I can go knight c5, and that was my original idea, but I made it work here because the pawn's pinned, and I'm guaranteed to trade off the bishop pair. So I was pretty happy to have made that idea work after he delayed it. So here he played queen d5, and I, without thinking, take the bishop immediately. He takes back, and here I was debating for quite a long time, actually, about whether taking the e5 pawn is safe or if it was being a bit too gluttonous. I could take the pawn. It is a move. I was in a worse position, but it doesn't. The advantage doesn't spike significantly, but it does benefit white that I take the pawn. It's because white can play this move like bishop c3 here. Although the engine doesn't like it, it just helps open another diagonal to the king where my dark squares are really weak. And in an ideal world, white would just set up some sort of battery here and be in a very commanding position, very attacking position here. So It also helps open the e file where white's rooks can get into the game. So I didn't think opening my opponent's lines to attack two different ways was worth the cost of a pawn. So I don't take it, and instead play the move b6, ready to fianchetto the bishop on b7, and have my own long-range sniper piece aiming at the opponent's king side. So here he plays the move queen g3. I suppose wanting to go with bishop g5 and then bishop to f6, try to sink the bishop in that way. But I ignore that. I don't care. I play bishop to b7, and I thought that if bishop g5 were to happen, I would take on b4, and I have queen h4 covered, so he can't really invade in on the dark squares or anything like that. So he didn't play that. He didn't play bishop g5. He played the move a3, just overprotecting the pawn. I go with rook e8, attacking the e pawn. He goes with rook on f to e1 to defend. I go with queen to e6. And at this point, we each had about maybe a little less than 30 minutes, if I remember correctly. I played queen e6 here with the idea to set up my own battery with my bishop, to maybe play queen d5 or queen c6. And in an ideal situation, let's say white plays something careless, like queen to h4. In an ideal world, my idea would be to play queen d5, forking this bishop the moment it gets undefended, and the checkmate square on g2. So if white isn't careful, they can fall victim to this trap. So that is some ideas I have in mind. But Chris plays the move bishop to g5, getting out of harm's way, and now that idea is pretty much invalid at this point. I play c5, which I was actually pretty proud to see, and it's a pawn. The pawn on b4 is tactically pinned. If the pawn were to take, then I would be totally winning after rook g4. And because my rook and bishop are aiming at the g2 square and the queen's attacked, there's too much being attacked in white's position, and white's position is going to totally fall apart after they save the queen to defend the bishop with queen e3. Let's say I would play rook g2, and this is totally winning for black, and white can pretty much resign here. So that's why the pawn cannot be taken, because it would open up the rook g4 idea. Chris sees that. He plays rook on a to b1 just to add another defender to the pawn. And the position is dead drawn, according to Stockfish. I play rook on e to a8. I'm activating my pieces on the queen side, trying to generate some counterplay. And although I still have the dark square weaknesses on my king, there isn't any way for me to get mated anytime soon, so it's not really anything to worry about right now, even though it does look unpleasant. So here he plays bishop c1, not the defensive move I was thinking he'd play. I was much rather thinking he'd play rook b3 or even rook e3. Actually, rook e3 blunders, takes, and then some back rank infiltration. But the point is, I wasn't expecting him to undevelop the bishop to c1. Looks very counterintuitive. And here I play queen f5. I also noticed that by undeveloping, the rooks are disconnected. So I immediately take advantage of that and attack the undefended rook. He plays rook b3 now for some reason. And here I was thinking maybe to push with c4, try to get some sort of passed pawn going on. And because he can't go rook f3 because my bishop's there, but I didn't really think that was necessary. So I didn't play that. Instead, I play the move queen e6. I repeat because I didn't really know what to do. I was getting low on time. And I thought maybe Chris would go back to b1, and then I'd try to think of some other plan. But he instead plays the move rook d1, preparing to go with rook d6 to fork the queen and the pawn on b6. Here I play this sly move. It's a pretty sneaky move with a rook to e8. And here something odd happens. After rook to e8, I stand up and I went to go use the restroom. And Chris, at this point, had very low time. He was playing like in the blitz style. He had like 5 minutes left at this point. And while I was in the bathroom, he allegedly, I did not see this, but he told me after the game that he played the move rook d6. I did not see this, but he admitted it to me. which was interesting. He played the move Rook D6, even though I wasn't there to witness it. And by the time I got back from the restroom, he had already started cleaning up the pieces, and I was a bit bewildered at that. I asked him why he was clearing the pieces, and he told me he had blundered with Rook D6, and after which I would have played Queen takes D6. I plugged that into the engine because that's what would have happened. I would have played this Queen takes D6. That's why I called Rook E8 a sly move, because if Rook D6 were to be played, he would blunder this back rank tactic, because if takes, I would have Rook to E1 mate. So I was a bit surprised that Chris didn't wait for me to see the move, or even he assumed I'd see it, which I did, but he can't be 100% certain. And if he wanted to be a bit dishonest, but, wanted to keep the game going on longer, he could have redid his move before I saw anything. That would have probably been the first instinct for a lot of us. Even though it might not be the ethically correct option, I'm sure that's what a lot of us would be going through right now if we were to play a blunder like this and realize it. But thankfully, Chris was a good sport about it. He was honest about it, and we get a surprising win out of this game. And I thanked him for being honest. So that was nice. We end the game like this. So if we take a look at the accuracy here, I played at 89.4. Assuming Rook D6, Queen takes D6 was actually played. And he played at 84.7. So pretty good game from both of us. I definitely got lucky again because I was positionally cooked out of the opening and early middle game. But then I managed to get back in the game, generate some queenside counterplay, and eventually Chris blundered into the Rook D6 move, although the way of him resigning was a bit weird. But still, we get the win, and that's all that matters. So hopefully you guys like the game as much as I do. If you like content like this, please don't forget to smash the subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the video. And stay tuned for round 4 and some updates at the end of the video for that. And have a great rest of your day or night. Bye.